Good morning and welcome to another episode of Bridging the Human Divide. My name is Shera Sever. I'm your host. I'm an organizational culture, leadership consultant, a change maker, business and life mastery coach. I work with organizational and community leaders on their social architecture. That is, creating transparent, aligned cultures, strategies, and courses focused on leadership development, social, and planetary wellness. I'm the founder of Igniting the Spark and the Community Resiliency Project. Bridging the Human Divide is a series of weekly conversations with everyday change makers committed to moving from polarization to understanding of the divergent perspectives we're facing in our communities, workplaces, organizations, and in our personal relationships. The intent here is to invite all to gather around the fire of collective heart intelligence so that we can all move forward with more grace, understanding, dialogue, and engaged compassion in action. And today I'm moving a bit off the beaten path, if you will. And I decided to invite um, a community leader and colleague from the international dance movement, Stacey Butcher. And Stacey's going to speak with us today about dance as a universal harmonizer. Stacey is an open floor movement teacher serving on the faculty of Open Floor International. She's also a somatic experiencing practitioner, an integral somatic psychology practitioner, a certified five rhythms teacher trained by Gabrielle Roth, and a Reiki master teacher and body worker. Stacey has been dedicated to the healing arts for over 20 years and has studied with healers and teachers from around the world. Her teaching is infused with passion, deep presence, and humor, and she's known for creating containers for transformation, particularly on the dance floor. So I'd love to welcome you, Stacey, to this episode of Bridging the Human Divide.
Thank you. It's great to be here with you. Yeah, really
Absolutely.
great.
And where are you today?
I'm in San Rafael, California right now.
Oh, you're in Marin County, California, and I'm
Yep.
from Sedona, Arizona.
Yep.
I just want to share with our audience why I decided to go this route and chose you. I've also been in the world of dance since actually the late 70s with Contact Improv, and I also studied with Gabrielle Roth in the late 80s, and have been on dance floors with you as well. And I also am a Reiki practitioner. But I've had a lot of this series has been addressing language and presence and some somatic practices. But I wanted to really go deeper into embodied practices and movement. So I'm really, really happy that you're our guest today. And, I'd like to start out, I think some of the things that you do may not be familiar for everyone that would be listening to this recording in the future. So take some time and tell us a little bit about open floor dance, five rhythms, somatic experiencing, and how it all is interwoven and why you've chosen this as your life's work.
Yeah. Thank you. Gosh, why I chose it as my life's work that was a big, long journey. If you would have told me I was doing this, if you would have said it 25 years ago, I would not have believed you. No way. But I know for me, I found all the practices that I teach and work in are practices that changed my life, that made me go, I want to do that. And it's been quite a journey, and I've been teaching a lot of open floor online, and I teach a class where I combine somatic experiencing with open floor because I find they're so complementary, right? I mean, both practices really help to get us moving so we don't get so caught up in our stuff, our everyday stuff.
Right.
And what I like about the dance or movement, right? You don't have to get any steps right. You don't have to be a perfect dancer, but it's really moving, moving what's happening. And it's a great opportunity to meet ourselves in a different way. And we can actually have fun at it too, right? It's,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting. Where I'm at, open floor is not known
Mm-hmm.
nearly as much as, say, ecstatic dance. That's sort of the
Mm-hmm.
movement that is more familiar in a lot of communities. But
Mm-hmm.
in many, even in Southern California, I just had a guest here, had not heard of ecstatic dance, certainly
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what open floor is.
Yeah.
Just, if I were a newcomer to open
Yeah.
floor or to some five rhythms work, I mean, why would I even want to go, first of all? What is the purpose of entering this space, and
Right.
what could I possibly expect, again, as somebody very new to the experience?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can tell you with open floor, what we do is we work with what we call core movement resources. So it's a practice to give you resources in your everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm.
A resource being something that can bring you back to yourself, right? When we get, whoa, what's going on, which is pretty rampant right now. A resource is something we can kind of anchor into, right? And we work with, open floor. It's not like it's a modality that's so different from others. We really work with the movement resources that happen in any kind of movement, right? Whether it's in your everyday life of walking to the store or doing a yoga class or any other dance, that we bring awareness to these different ways of moving in the world. Because when we bring awareness to it, that's when our insight comes. And the beauty is when we move on the dance floor, right? And we get to do it through dance, which is wonderful, right? And when we do it that way, when we work through dance on the dance floor, it actually gets in our body, right? Because we can sit and listen to a lecture about something or take a class and get in our heads and we learn. But there's a way I have found for me when I actually am moving, an exploration, I'm inquiring into what's moving me.
Yes,
That's when it's more long lasting. Like my
exactly.
body actually knows it. Yeah. Rather than, oh, I learned this in a book.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And that,
Yeah.
it's been a huge teacher for me as well, Stacey, and very much part of, my personal growth experience,
Yeah.
my awareness, my experience, trusting my intuition,
Mm-hmm.
very much so. And then interrelating and trusting my
Definitely.
interrelating with others. And that's
Yeah.
really where I want to go now, because
Mm-hmm.
our topic is bridging the human divide.
Mm-hmm.
And we chose dance as a universal harmonizer. So
Yeah.
I wonder if you could just free form, just
Mm-hmm.
share how do you see and how have you seen, particularly in these times,
Mm-hmm.
how what you're facilitating, this container that you're creating and facilitating, how do you see that bridging the divide?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that we work with in open floor, we call it move and include,
Yes.
right? So nothing is left out, right? So that'd be nice if we could live that way right now, right? Because
Right.
we get so stuck in this is my opinion or this is how I feel about that, right?
Right.
So really working with ways to meet that, to be honest with ourselves, to see when we're really, really stuck. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Can we meet it and can we give it some space to actually move us, right? And when we can do that, when we find some movement, there becomes more space, right? So for example, if I'm stuck in my opinion, which I often do get stuck in my opinion,
Right.
but I won't go there, right? If I can take that and meet it and give it some movement and breath, like, rather than holding on to it like this, like, oh, can I breathe into it? Can I move it? Right? Finding, and there's some way it brings more space into my body to be able to include, right, other opinions or other
Yeah.
people or other viewpoints, right? Because if
Yes.
we're like this, we are just,
Yeah, I
and
so
we're
love
not going to
that.
see. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know that in myself. I
Right.
know that in myself. And I really have to, I actually once did a video where I danced to the news or moved to the news. I used the report on, and this is during the pandemic, as my music, as an example of move and include. Just to give an example of what that is, to like, okay, how do I even this?
Yes,
Even
I
this.
love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that idea of move and include is an open floor teaching, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it also allows us, which I think is really important, as we've seen the polarization just
Mm-hmm.
intensify. Um, Really important. It allows us to drop judgment. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I see this person. I have all kinds of judgments about the size, the gender, the hair color, the eye color, the skin color, or I may not, but let's
Mm-hmm.
just, or where he or she is from, or what I heard. And when we do a move and include, all of those boundaries dissolve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it's happening on so many different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's happening in our thoughts, in our emotions, right? In our
Mm-hmm.
physical body, we'll feel things. So, and in our soul, right? There's all these different layers of where we're working with that. You know, so instead of taking, like, if we're having a thought or a strong opinion, instead of just blurting it out to someone, you know, we take some time to move it, right? So if I've got a really strong opinion, it's like, what's the movement of that in my mind? Like, right? It
Yeah,
might be like that,
exactly.
you know, and then I give it room to breathe and move and, you know, before I speak. Of course, you don't want to do that in the middle of a conversation necessarily, but
No, of course not. But just,
right.
I often visualize, or I often wonder, like, and I have done this in some organizations that are a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more open and smaller organizations. But,
Mm-hmm.
to actually start our meeting, our check-in actually with movement. Now, I'm
Great.
not saying that that is something that, that's about 1% of the
Yeah.
environments or situations I've been in. But it's really been fabulous when we can do
Mm-hmm.
that. And if not, at least to do a check-in, like just how are you
Yeah.
feeling today?
Yeah.
So, but I would love to see more movement.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just, okay, uh, here's how we'll start our meeting. I mean, everyone's just more energized, more in touch with himself, and more open to hearing, I think, what others have to say.
Yeah.
So just what inspired you to be part of this particular conversation?
You know, I think I'm definitely affected by, there's so many things dividing us right now, so many. And
Right.
so I've really been seeing the effects of that in my students. And so I just feel like it's really important conversations to have of, you know, the ways that we can start to open and start to see different perspectives. I actually taught a whole workshop last year called Perspective, just working with seeing things from different perspectives.
That's fascinating. And
Yeah, it's, yeah.
yeah. And I think you were also going to share, like you said, you've seen some of these challenges
Yeah.
in the container on the dance floor with students.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there were a few things when we had talked earlier, there were a few things that you had wanted to share about,
Mm-hmm.
just insights that have
Mm-hmm.
emerged as a result of working with others with the intention of, bridging divides or dissolving divides, being aware
Mm-hmm.
of these divides.
Right.
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I've done some, you know, work where we actually work at embodying our own, like, just say there's a polarity, right? Of
Right.
like, I believe this, you believe that. I've worked with students where we actually embody that with each other. Like, I'm going to give you the shape of like, this is how I feel, right? Now, are you going to meet me there? Right? You going to resist it? Are
Exactly.
you going to move toward it? Are you going to move away? Like, we just do all these explorations of making it into a dance of what happens when it's in me and how can I give it movement and life, and, you know, not to get rid of it, but just to give it life.
Right. Right.
And also how that is in relation, because your thing might be, I'm going to run away from that, but how can you turn toward and actually meet it and move with it? And I've really seen, like, this is one example where I've seen people be able to, first of all, kind of see the reflection of themselves, because they can see themselves on Zoom, right?
Right.
So it's a
Exactly. Oh,
little bit of a
okay.
different, yeah.
Right.
So
Wow.
as we have people really try on these different roles, and a lot of times I work with polarities of feeling different sides of things and then finding the dance in between. So finding that space in between, so it's not so black and white.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so great to see people go, oh, like when they move it and feel, because I think what happens is we can get stuck in the way we feel about something and not even know we're stuck. Right? It's like, I'm right. But when we can actually take the shape of it and feel what it does to our breath and our body, the contraction, right? We don't breathe as well when we're really stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're breathing and like, oh, okay, I can still have that belief. I can still have that opinion. And, yes, and, and you have that, okay, not just, no, but making it more of an exchange.
Yeah. So I'm hearing that there's this quality of acceptance too that seems to enter the
Definitely.
interplay, right?
Definitely. And not just of others, but of yourself too.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So even like, wow, I'm having this opinion or I'm having this need to be right. And I'm wondering if I could move beyond that, if what kind of connection might be created.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes it makes it like we end up having fun by, okay, if you've got a strong opinion, like really give yourself to, stomp your feet and like really, really meet it. There's something really freeing in that of like, oh, that is how I feel. Like that's okay without judgment. And so there's some way that it helps us almost see the humor in it. Like, right, we're human and we get stuck in these places.
Right. How perfectly human, right?
Exactly.
That's the saying that they use a lot in the conscious communication communities and how perfectly human.
I love that.
It's like, we can be messy. It's okay. I love that you brought forth, because I had not been on an open floor dance floor. I mean, maybe a couple times in the last year, just as I go in and out of the Bay Area. But I'm so happy that you, again, emphasize that, sometimes this is like, it's almost therapeutic. It's a way to work through these blocked emotions that could be associated with a trauma from long ago, and how simply, with the right facilitation, how that can not only be released, but then it allows for the connection. It allows for, I'm going to just use the word depolarization, because that's kind of our theme, or it allows for harmonization. So
it's true. And even in somatic experiencing, we work with, a lot of times when there's a big trauma, your body, it's like there's a natural movement that wants to come as like to complete the kind of gestalt of what happened. And often that can happen on the dance floor without people even like, I don't even know what happened, but I started moving this way. And it's like, it's amazing. And the body just, it knows. There's this organic intelligence in our body that when you have the right moment, the right circumstances, things can move that we're not even expecting to move.
Right. I love it. I mean, when I hear you say that, it reminds me of just our little babies, when they, and that innate intelligence, that body intelligence, they know when to take the first step, right?
Exactly.
They finally get on their 2 feet, and it's usually in a, well, first of all, there's going to be an audience in that environment. We know it. That's the safe environment. There's probably a grandparent there, but again, it's that body intelligence that never leaves us, right? And I think the work you're doing is, bringing us back to that place.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like babies, it's so natural with us. We're so distracted with other things, with, taking in the news or getting on Facebook or doing our work or whatever. But all it takes is stopping, pausing, meeting yourself, right? Really meeting yourself and opening your awareness to seeing what's there. That's where babies come from, right? It's just, they're right in the present moment and they just follow what's true in that moment. And that's a lot of what we do in the dance. We're not trying to get you to do anything different, but can you be present right here?
I love that.
For what's moving. Yeah.
And in the work I do, my goal is to help people. Of course, we have to meet ourselves, but then let's meet each other, because I do a lot of facilitation, organizational kind of work, and that's normally what's the challenge is getting others to meet each other. And that's also where this divide, I mean, there's a lot of causes for it as
Sure.
continually being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
So there was something else we talked about earlier, Stacey, and I'd love it if there were a couple takeaways that we wanted the
Mm-hmm.
audience to leave
Mm-hmm.
with, and once they had an understanding of the work that you do. But I know
Mm-hmm.
you wanted to do a demo. Did you kind of want to interrelate like a takeaway with the demo, like how this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I've kind of been doing little demos as we've talked organically,
But
but
yeah, go
just
ahead.
one little, like one of the things I know we were talking about is the idea of when you're using movement, of moving from being fixed to being fluid,
Right.
right? Because that, to me, that's the main thing that's going to help us find our way of being with others, right? And listening to others, because if we're too fixed, we can't. Right. So even just a super simple example, right, is just like, what if we did like really exaggerated fixed, like, oh, tighten up, this is my opinion, you're not getting in, this is
Okay.
it.
Sure. All right.
Right. And
Yeah.
if I take a nice big breath and I let that go first, just that
Mm-hmm.
gives me some space.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if I take that to the next level, so if I tighten up and this is it, this is my opinion, you're not getting in, nope.
Right.
I
Right.
take a nice breath and I give it some movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Like I can physically feel my body actually making space for that to live.
Right.
And so it's not so, it's, oh, okay. Almost letting my body communicate it rather than my mouth, because I can get into some trouble. Right. And that's the beauty, is on the dance floor, we're relating on a level that's beyond words. Right.
That's
And
right.
even on the virtual one, we're moving with our bodies. We're communicating with our body. This is what's happening in my body, rather than da, 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 da.
Yeah. I'm
Right.
so inspired to hear that people have said yes to the virtual environment uh,
Yeah.
in the movement world, in the somatic world. So that's very, very encouraging.
Yeah.
So was there anything else? I have one more question for you. Just was there anything
Yeah.
else?
Please. Yeah.
Uh, so again, how can we take, because you've been at this for, well, even before I met you in Marin County many, many years ago. I mean, you've been at
Mm-hmm.
this for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
also as a healer. But how can um, the average person, maybe who is just starting to experiment with new modalities on their
Mm-hmm.
path, on their for
Mm-hmm.
their personal development, how can they take some of these basic teachings and practices um, from open floor, and
Mm-hmm.
SCP is a little bit different,
Mm-hmm.
but just in my everyday life, because I
Yeah.
mentioned to you that I'm building a magic backpack for
Mm-hmm.
everyone to have some tools as we move
Mm-hmm.
into to the end of this year and into 2021. And I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to add a few of the open floor tools to the magic
Mm-hmm.
backpack. So what are a couple that we could take, even if we're novices on the floor, on the dance floor?
Absolutely. I mean, one thing that everybody can do is have awareness, right? And that's, we really incorporate that, really came from like the Gestalt, practices into open floor, of really being aware of what's happening in the moment. That's the number one thing. So if I'm at Trader Joe's and I'm in line and that line's really long and we've got to be 6 feet apart and I'm like, I got to get going, can I take a breath and go, okay, what's that, right? Rather than getting caught in my mind and my story. Okay, I'm really irritated. Like, how does that feel in my body, right? You don't even have to dance in the store, right? But you just know,
You
like, what's the
could,
sensation? You could, and I
yeah,
have. But, people who never have done this practice might not want to.
right.
But just the awareness of the physical sensation, right, rather than the story, right? So it's like, oh, I'm irritated. Okay, what's the physical sensation? Like, oh, my chest is tight. My chest is tight. And to just breathe into that, like, because that's what's really true. You can make up your stories about everybody in line or how your time is more important, but just taking that breath, like anchoring in your breath of, okay, And you might even, I'll do this, I'll just kind of do a little sway when I'm
Mhm.
like, okay, let me just let that settle in my body. Like, okay, I'm irritated, right? Because there's nothing I can do to make this line go faster. So
Right. So in a line, like
just a
just,
little
yeah,
sway.
the
Yeah,
patient. So it really adds to developing, um, one of the greatest virtues humans can have, and that is of patience, right? So
absolutely.
yeah, it
Absolutely.
helps us become adults. So just a
Yeah,
little swaying in line.
a
Uh,
little sway. Nobody will know what you're doing. And you know what's going to happen? This is the beauty is someone sees you doing a little sway, they might do a little sway, right? Because as each human starts to, if I'm with someone who's more settled and regulated than I am, it brings me there,
yeah,
right? So if we're just, it's amazing how contagious that can be,
I love that.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Anything
definitely.
else? Any other tip for the magic backpack?
Huh. Yeah. I'd say come down, like really, here's the
Exactly.
thing is being on Zoom is a great opportunity for people who have been shy about coming because, right,
Hmm.
they don't want to be necessarily in a room with other people. But it's a great way. We've actually had a lot of new people come and be introduced to the practice because they feel safer on
Yes.
Zoom.
Yes.
So, and when you come and experience, because that's when the practice comes into your life, is when you try it out. It's easy for me to say, oh, we can do this or we can do that, but again, until we actually experience it, that's when we start to, like,
Yeah.
we start to know when our body's trying to tell us something.
I love that you said come dance.
Yeah.
And I think too, I've worked a lot with, different personality types if you
Yeah.
do Enneagram or Myers-Briggs, but the introvert extrovert piece has been very interesting for me.
Hmm.
And I think what I've learned, 'cause I do a lot of virtual facilitation as well.
Hmm.
I've learned that in the virtual world, um, my introverts have become more expressive,
Yeah.
and they're being seen more. So,
Yeah.
come dance virtually with Stacey Butcher is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That sounds,
Yeah. And there's lots of teachers all over the world teaching online. It's incredible.
yeah. So to find out what you're doing, it's
Hmm.
stacybutcher.com, and I'll have
Yep.
that in our comments as well.
Great.
And anything else you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
Yeah, God, just thank you. Like I really appreciated your reaching out and I went, oh, good. Yeah, people know that dance does matter because it really does matter.
Yeah, absolutely, especially in these
Yeah,
times, and just adding a little playfulness to everything as well. And just we
exactly.
need to do that, right?
Exactly. Like I'm finding people who are just, thank God you guys are offering that. Like we're just keep showing up for people, and it just is helping people through this time. So it's
That's
an honor to be able to do this work, and it's a resource for me too. Like when I go teach, it helps me find a little normalcy in my life, even though it's
yeah,
on Zoom. But yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Well, Stacey, thank you for your mastery. And
yeah,
this is a recorded event, but I will broadcast it live at our regular time at 11
yep.
a.m. Pacific on Wednesday, September 23rd.
Third, yeah.
And next week is going to be my last week of a live broadcast of Bridging the Human Divide. And I'm inviting a longtime friend and peace educator and forgiveness teacher, Will Chang, and we're going to speak on the spirit of aloha. So do join us live on Wednesday, September 30th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And in the meantime, just as Stacey said, let's practice some awareness, and let's continue to bridge the divide and even dissolve the divide. That's just a little bit of swaying and movement. So
Mm,
have a wonderful day, everyone. Bye bye.
thank you.